Good morning. You're tuned in. Good morning. You're tuned into the 11th hour, broadcasting live from Trobe University in Melbourne. It's 11 a.m. and we're raring to go with another show for you today. I'm joined here by my co-host James Hurley. James, how hard was it getting out of bed this morning? Winter is coming.
It was mighty cold this morning. Last night I found myself going to bed fully clothed because it was that cold. What about yourself?
Yeah, it was definitely freezing. I think I had about 4 blankets on the bed.
You can tweet us on our Twitter at the 11th hour LTU. _ LTU.
So today on the show, we have a segment on public transport safety, reforms to the education initiative NAPLAN. Finn will be sharing some nutrition tips for winter foods. We have grade remarks. Zeren Altun will be covering a report on an all-new Australian vodka, Bondi Blue. We'll be doing the weekly sports wrap-up and discussing the all-too-exciting pub footy tournament that takes place in Melbourne each year, where 8 local pubs play off against each other. Exciting stuff. But first up, as always, we have Lisa joining us with the headlines.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Good, thank you. A report released by Amnesty International says the shooting on Manus Island during the Good Friday riot was downplayed. Originally, the Australian Department of Immigration and Border Protection said PNG military personnel discharged a weapon into the air during the incident. Investigation from PNG and Amnesty International says video footage shows significant damage caused by bullets. The video demonstrates that several bullets were fired into the detention center where people were hiding. Staff, refugees, and asylum seekers in the center reported hearing 100 shots fired. The riot started following a dispute over the use of a soccer field nearby. After releasing this latest report, Amnesty International has renewed its calls for the Manus Island Detention Center to be shut down. Amnesty's Pacific researcher, Kate Schutz, said, "Until that system is dismantled and the refugees are brought to safety, the threat to their lives will remain." Australian woman Sarah Connor has had her sentence increased from 4 to 5 years for the fatal assault of a Bali police officer. Wayan Sudarsa was found dead on Kuta Beach on August 17th of last year. Connor and her boyfriend David Taylor were found guilty of fatal group assault in March and sentenced to 4 and 6 years jail. She has maintained her innocence, saying all she did was try to separate Taylor and the officer as they struggled on the beach. Prosecutors lodged an appeal against Connor's original sentence, saying it did not reflect a sense of justice. Connor will have 7 days to decide whether to appeal to the Supreme Court once the District Court receives the ruling. News Corp's latest round of cuts has made up to 70 staff photographers redundant. Rupert Murdoch's Australian newspapers are adopting an outsourcing model that will consist of a core team of photographic specialists along with freelance and agency talent. News Corp is attempting to cut the costs associated with producing its printed newspaper. The next cut is expected to target production staff, including sub-editors and designers. They joined Fairfax in the attempt to cut costs. Fairfax journalists went on strike after the company announced it was cutting 125 journalists from The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. North Korea has claimed it has successfully conducted a mid- to long-range missile test on Sunday. The newly developed missile is attempting to test the ability to carry a large-size heavy nuclear warhead. Officials say the launch was aimed to send a message to South Korea's new president, Moon Jae-in. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un also warned the United States it should not misjudge the reality that the U.S. mainland is in Pyongyang's sighting range for a strike. The United Nations Security Council is due to meet today to discuss this latest missile launch at the request of the United States, South Korea, and Japan. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley said the U.S. would also continue to tighten the screws on North Korea. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Lisa. Scary stuff happening in North Korea. They keep such a tight control over the information they send out there, so it's difficult to tell just how mobilised they are to send out these missiles.
Yeah, very one-sided reports coming from North Korea indeed.
Yes. And also, will this be the state of the media in general in the future, James?
Quite possibly, yes, unfortunately. Last year, the company axed 120 editorial jobs from its newsrooms in Sydney and Melbourne a year ago. An earlier cost-cutting exercise outlined its targets last month. In March this year, The Guardian announced 350 jobs would be cut in bid to reduce operating costs, and Chief Executive of the Fairfax, Greg Hayward, said that there could be potential more cuts in New Zealand this year.
With all these cuts to funding, it's hard to imagine that the media landscape of tomorrow. With the rise of accessibility as well to information and technologies, just about everyone has the ability to be a journalist if they want to.
The cuts are happening in sectors that could once be considered integral to making quality content.
There's been such a shift in the way we receive and share information. Before a story can be verified as correct, it has the potential to reach millions of people through social media channels.
Yeah, this could be dangerous and lead to the spread of misinformation. The public should be informed with the correct information. There's an argument that dissolving the current system of reporting and making cuts to specialty areas may result in exactly that. Ill-informed news with focus on getting on the most shares on Facebook or the most clicks on a web page.
And James, have you ever been misled by a news article that was clearly designed as clickbait? The sort of sensational headlines that some news websites put out in order to generate more online traffic through the website?
Oh yes, plenty of times on Facebook, like most recently what teenagers look now, or teenage celebrities look now. Like Disney Channel stuff, like quite embarrassing, but it's clickbait and you get dragged into it and you realise it's a load of rubbish.
You do. Also things like a kangaroo tried to drown me.
Yeah.
I suppose we'll see firsthand what the future of the media will be like, James. Well, that's if we can get a job anyway.
Exactly.
Next up, we're talking about safety on public transport. We'd all like to think that when we take public transport, we're utilising a safe and environmentally friendly service, but that isn't always the case. Although transport providers have policies in place to protect patrons, our personal safety is far from guaranteed. A woman recently went viral after tweeting about the sexual harassment she experienced during a bus ride. After repeatedly rebuking a man's advances, Nathalie Gordon noticed that he'd begun to rub his crotch while staring at her. To add insult to injury, when she reported the harassment to the bus driver, she was told, "You're a pretty girl, what do you expect?" Public Transport Victoria has employed safety officers to try to deter these kinds of things, among others, from happening. However, we still have instances of harassment and assault in our networks. So the question is, how do we stay safe and keep others safe on public transport?
Yeah, such a tricky question, isn't it, Jess?
It really is. Just last month, the Herald Sun reported on Melbourne's train crime crisis, bringing to light the fact that almost half of our stations have more crimes committed during the day than at night, which is pretty scary.
This actually happened to one of my friends in Coburg. He was walking along the train tracks near his house at 1 p.m. in the afternoon and was held up by three big guys. They sought out and stood over him and intimidated him and told him to give him all of his valuables that he had on him. He complied, obviously because he was really scared and they really wanted to hurt him. Otherwise, his phone, his wallet and his watch were stolen in broad daylight in quite a nice residential area too.
That would be honestly terrifying. I don't know if I'd even feel comfortable going back to the area again, to be honest.
Scary that's in broad daylight.
Yeah. And it's things like that, and the fact as well that crimes at stations have risen by 20% in the past year. And so that leaves us with a pretty bleak outlook. It seems that those who want to cause trouble are getting more brazen in their actions.
One element people do like to mention when it comes to the crime and extremities of most recent crimes is the rise of methamphetamine or ice users. It is really a nationwide epidemic, although the correlation between these attacks may not directly be caused by people who abuse drugs, but there really are really strong indicators to suggest that these two issues are linked. Perhaps more needs to be done in the way of helping people who are obviously living in the outside of the social norms, people who might be feeling desperate due to their situation.
Yeah, it's definitely something people tend to tread very lightly on if they even look at it at all. But as you said, substance abuse can be linked with someone's feelings that they can't deal with their current situation or if they can't improve it. So it does make sense that they'd commit other desperate acts as well. I feel it's also important to note that Southern Cross is actually the worst station for crimes committed during the day, and they aren't just small offences, they're actually crimes against the person. So that's things like the sexual assault we discussed earlier, harassment, general assaults, and it's scary. Like, I think all the issues are interwoven, but especially the one that happened to Napoli, that's definitely linked with sexism. And I know everyone rolls their eyes when that word's brought up, but it's something we really do need to look at if we're going to cover the entire issue.
Yeah, certainly needs to be more done to ensure people's safety on public transport,
Yeah.
And thanks for coming in.
The recent changes to the National Assessment Program for Literacy and Numeracy, otherwise known as NAPLAN, have caused somewhat of a stir over the past week.
Yes, thousands of Year 3, 5, 7 and 9 students across Australia set their NAPLAN test last week, assessing their literacy and numeracy. We're now joined by Trobe Live reporter Jess Whitby to have a chat about the controversy surrounding NAPLAN.
Hi guys.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's all right. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. So last week, thousands of kids across the country sat their NAPLAN. So as you said, in Years 3, 5, 7, 9. They all went and sat their literacy and numeracy tests, and there was actually quite a stir created by a bill that kind of just slipped through New South Wales Parliament without anyone really noticing about it. So the NAPLAN, it was introduced in 2008 by former Education Minister Julia Gillard, and it was really for the government to kind of identify where these black spots are in the curriculum and really take the data from these tests with these kids sitting these standardised testing and say, hey, look, this is a area, I guess, that this area is struggling in, or the whole country is struggling in this area. We're going to fix that in the curriculum, and so every year they can be bettering the curriculum to really help Australian students where they need to be. But as you said, there was a bit of controversy last week where the NAPLAN has now, in New South Wales particularly, become something that's tied to the individual success of its students. So a bill slipped through, I think it was last year, where now if students in Year 9 don't receive a Band 8 level or higher, they actually aren't eligible for the HSC until they achieve that level. So it's completely transformed the NAPLAN. I mean, if they don't achieve this level, they have 3 opportunities to resit it. So in Years 10, 11, 12, they get, 6 opportunities to resit it, 2 each year. And if they don't achieve that, they'll get a record of school achievement instead of their HSC. And I mean, HSC is something that everyone aims for. It's same in Victoria, you aim for your VCE, they aim for their HSC. And this year we're going to have all these Year 9 students being told that you're actually not eligible to get your HSC until you achieve this mark. And I mean, it's a pretty high level. We saw that last year only a third of Year 9 students actually achieved a Band 8 or higher. That means we're going to have 2/3 of Year 9 kids in New South Wales told this year, you're not smart enough to finish high school, pretty much. You're not smart enough to get this HSC, which is the minimum for most students across New South Wales.
Are the kids at risk of not having the grades to be accepted into university, or is it just it's not seen as acceptable to progress?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be difficult to know. I mean, I think having your VC or your HSC or whatever it might be is kind of that standard. That's what you need to get into university. Of course, there's other ways in now. You can go through pathways into degrees. So I know here, even through other doors, I guess. So I know here at La Trobe, if you don't get into physio because it's such a high mark, or you don't get into journalism at RMIT because it's so high, you can go in through a basic degree through like a general degree, so in arts or social sciences, and get good marks in your first year and transfer over. So I mean, I guess we really won't know whether it'll be a hurdle for them to get into university where they will be able to get these marks or not. It'll be interesting. It'll be definitely something that we'll have to see in 3 years' time. And I guess that's another big issue with this that a lot of people have talked about, is that your ATAR is what you receive at the end of Year 12. That's something that only sticks with you for a year, 2 years at most. If you don't get the ATAR you want, you take a back door through to the university and you get into the course way you want. But this not being able to get their HSC, they're going to have to, if they don't get it in Year 9 and they are predetermined to be ineligible, they're going to have to retake it in Year 10. If they get it in Year 10, they're going to be thinking about it in Year 11 and Year 12. And you could potentially be thinking about this NAPLAN test and getting a HSC for up to 3 years, and then it could still potentially affect you once you finish in trying to get into university. And I think that's something that's that puts so much pressure on these 14, 15-year-olds to have to achieve this level and they have to be able to essentially pass this predetermined level to get their HSC, and that's so much pressure. As a 14-year-old, you're not thinking about year 12. You're thinking about year...
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, we could potentially see... I know there's been concerns raised in the community of kids dropping out of university... dropping out of high school early, being told, getting to year 10 and being like, well, I'm obviously not smart enough to get my HSC because...
Why bother?
Yeah, the system's labelled me as a failure. Why bother? Why bother finishing? And I mean, that's something that we really don't want to be encouraging. The government obviously doesn't want to encourage that. They want to encourage kids to finish school. I mean, we saw during the week during last week, the executive director of the New South Wales Parents Council, Stephen Grieve, he came out and said that really these pressures of these year 9 students having to achieve that level, that's really creating an avalanche of depression and stress for these kids. They're thinking about something that's not even on their radar yet. And he told the ABC that in the student wellbeing domain, NAPLAN's already a negative. And anything that that raises its status is a real negative.
It's definitely a worry as well to be labelling children this young as failures.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the benefits in it. The New South Wales Education Minister, Rob Stokes, said that every student will benefit from this greater focus on numeracy and literacy, and that's for sure. These kids, if they're not at that level, they're going to have to get to that level if they want their HSC. But, I mean, it's really putting pressure on kids. We're seeing stories of parents pulling their kids out of the NAPLAN because they don't want their children to be put under that kind of stress. It's really rough. I think it's definitely something that the government shouldn't take lightly, and definitely I think they should be reevaluating, maybe looking at whether it's successful or not. I mean, if it does push these kids, and I guess we won't know until they're in year 12, whether it does push up the levels of literacy, and we can see that last year only a third of these kids received Band 8, but by year 12 almost all of them had Band 8. That's not bad. But it'll be interesting. I mean, we really won't see the true effects of it for another couple of years.
Yeah, kids learn at different rates, different stages.
Yeah, exactly. I think it... the other problem with it, I guess, is a lot of kids don't test well. It's a formalised test. I don't test well. I know I bombed one of my VC exams.
I was a late developer. I was pretty bad.
Yeah, I bombed one of my year 12 exams because I just don't test well. I don't cope with the pressure, and a lot of kids aren't good at regurgitating those expected answers on demand. I know I'm not. I'm a learn through doing kind of person. So I think, it'll be interesting. We certainly won't see the effects of it for another couple of years.
Definitely.
Do you reckon kids are potentially going to be burnt out before they get to university with all the amount of pressure and the anxiety they have with these exams? Because it's such a young age.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one concern we've seen raised in the community, that kids, this generation in particular, they're going to be some of the most tested kids that have been brought up through the Australian education system. Not only have they got their regular school tests, they've got these NAPLAN tests, and then in addition to their HSC exams, year 11 exams, year 10 exams, they've got these additional NAPLAN tests to worry about. I mean, I certainly can't imagine doing an extra six tests over my last 3 years of high school.
No.
It's just so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, how much of it are you teaching? If these kids need to achieve this NAPLAN level, how much time are you devoting to teaching that to the NAPLAN rather than teaching to the curriculum? By the time you get to 11 year 12, you're studying specialised subjects, you're studying specialised ideas, and you're really focusing on one thing and not so much broad literacy and numeracy skills. But if you haven't achieved that Band 8 level, that might be something you have to focus on. You're taking time away from other subjects, from the curriculum. It's definitely interesting.
Well, hopefully some good comes to these tests.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think we certainly won't see the full results for another couple of years.
Thanks for that, Jess.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you.
We're going to take a quick break, but stay tuned for Findley Pollock, who will be schooling us to keep healthy for the winter right after the break.
And welcome back. You're, of course, joining us here at the 11th hour, live from La Trobe University in Melbourne, where it is very chilly. So just in case you hadn't noticed, it's cold outside.
That's right, Scarlett. I can see you popped in all your winter gear to keep away from the chill.
Yes, that's right, I did. And thank you to Jess, actually, for covering me while I stopped to buy these gloves. So all too often, students tend to let their health take a backseat, but this can lead to getting run down and not being able to perform very well at university. So that's we thought we'd bring in our nutrition expert, Findley Pollock, to give us some tips on how to keep warm this winter and healthy. How are you going, Findley?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Findley is a nutrition expert student here at La Trobe, and she gets involved with Melbourne's community radio station SYN. Findley, welcome back to the 11th hour.
Thanks, guys.
What advice would you be giving us for this winter?
Yeah, so during winter, the period, we tend to get run down and really sick, and this can sometimes be because of our poor nutrition status. So ensuring that we include a wide variety of fruits and vegetables into our diet is really key to maximising our immune system. But also ensuring that you do have lots of grains and lean cuts of meats and legumes can really help build our immune system too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So what sort of meals would you suggest for people in winter time? Just quick, easy ones to make up.
Yeah, definitely. I think thinking about what you're already doing and just maximising it by adding some more fruits and vegetables into what you already have. So think about maybe a pasta and adding lots of vegetables in like capsicum, zucchini, celery, just to bump it up. And then have maybe a bowl of salad on the side, because we know that vitamin C is really important during the winter time. And sometimes we tend to not consume a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. So if we have that salad, it's not going to be reducing our nutrient content because it's fresh.
So why do you think people consume less fruit and vegetable during the winter?
I think people tend to not know what's actually in season, and people think that, fresh foods aren't actually available in winter, but however they actually are. So think about things like potatoes, cabbage even, they're really good sources, and what you can be doing is making a really hearty stew, adding lots of fruits and vegetables into your diet to really help increase your vegetable intake.
That's such a great point, yeah. And one way to sort of save money on students is buying in season, you were telling me. So all of those things were in season that you were just mentioning then?
Definitely. Even think about buying in bulk. So things like your rice or your legumes, that can really help just to cut down the cost, but also ensure that you're, of adequate nutrient status as well.
Okay, yeah. What about drinks? Mm-hmm. Is it too much to have I like to drink tea in winter. Yep. I'm a sucker for tea. I like tea after tea after tea. Is drinking too much of tea going to be harmful to me in the long run?
So what we know about tea is it's got, a compound called tannins in them. Mm-hmm. And what tannins do is they reduce the iron absorption. Mm-hmm. So what we need to know is that when you have your tea, just consider maybe having it after you've consumed a food rich in iron, just so that you can absorb the iron and then have your tea afterwards. So what we know about iron is that it relates to your vitamin C status as well, because what you want to be doing is having a vitamin C source with your iron, because vitamin C helps boost your iron absorption. So this is really important in females in particular, and vegans and vegetarians who are iron deficient.
Okay.
Yeah. What tea would you recommend?
What tea?
Yeah, what tea? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Look, I really like lemon and ginger. I think there is some evidence suggesting that ginger is an anti-inflammatory, but that evidence is growing.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I forgot what I was going to say. So stews you're suggesting, fantastic. Tea, but not too much English breakfast before dinner, which is fair. And so is the vitamin C that you were talking about, is that key to battling colds?
Look, there is some evidence suggesting that having, say, a vitamin C supplement can reduce the intensity of your cold. However, that evidence is quite limited. Mm-hmm. So what you really want to be doing is ensuring that you consume a lot of fruits and vegetables rather than just when you're sick.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah, I was going to say, most uni students would agree cooking is a time-consuming of a pain.
Yeah.
Is there any healthy meals, quick, cheap and easy you could recommend?
Yeah, definitely. You could do something like a soup, for example. Just chuck in lots of different vegetables. If you're vegan or vegetarian, think about adding legumes for a bit of protein and iron.
Lentils maybe? Or?
Yeah, lentils. Yeah. Adding a few more different beans as well, just so you can boost your protein intake further. And making it in a big batch so that, you know, you don't have to make it again,
you can have
freezing
lunch
it.
next day.
Yeah, exactly. You could be adding some bread to it as well to bump up your grain intake too. So
Any
Finley-
breads? Sorry?
Oh, well, no, you go.
What specific breads would you use for like soup? Like not white bread, maybe multigrain, wholemeal?
yeah, definitely whole grain, wholemeal. So with the grains, that's going to boost your fibre intake.
Yeah.
So that's much, much better for you compared to white, which tends to have a lot more additives in it.
Excellent. I was going to say, what about eating out? Is there any recommendations you can make for us to keep healthy when we're going out for a meal?
Yeah, definitely. So think about, you know, a salad. That is quite a good healthy option. However, sometimes we don't necessarily feel like a salad, in particular with winter. Think about things like pastas with lots of vegetables added in them. Mexican food, I really like that. Lots of vegetables included. You know, you've got a mixture of fresh and also cooked. You've got your legumes and you've also got your lean cuts of meat as well. So that's a really good option.
Keep it leafy.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your advice there. We'll be sure to be whipping ourselves up a nice soup, I think, at home tonight. You've inspired us.
You can see all the tips and tricks on staying healthy on Findley's Instagram at Nutrition by Finn. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You can also check out her website, her blog, at FindleyClare, CLARE.wordpress.com.
Thanks so much for joining us, Finn.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
next time.
No worries. Well, it's coming to that time for a lot of university students. With the closing of yet another semester, assessment time. Has it ever been that you've completed an assignment, James, and you were really excited about the results that you get, but then the result you got didn't really match up to what you thought?
I would say at times I have. At times I felt hard done by. Like I've put a lot of effort into assignments and then not got the grade I thought I'd get. And then there's been times where I've not put that much effort into it and I've got a higher grade than expected. So it does kind of balance itself. And I think it all depends on who's marking your assessments, if they're strict or not, or what mindset or mood they're in that day.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's now a system in place which allows students to contest the mark that they've been given here at La Trobe. It's also happening at a lot of other universities as well. Now, the Student Union has put together a little video with more information on it for this grade remark scheme that could help students achieve a better score on their assessments. Let's take a look.
Are you unhappy about the grades you received? Feeling unfairly marked? Don't worry. All students have the right to request a review of individual pieces of work worth 20% of their final grade.
Here's how to get started. Step 1. If a student is unhappy with their original mark, the first step is to send an email within 10 working days to the original marker for the assignment to be reviewed, not remarked.
Step 2. Once the original marker has reviewed the result, and if the student is still unhappy with the review, the next phase is to request a remark.
A request for a remark of assessment can only be made on the grounds that A, the assessment was biased, or B, the assessment failed to follow the published grading scheme.
The student may now request a remark and direct an email to the subject coordinator. In the case that the subject coordinator marked the assessment, the email should be directed to the head of the school.
The application to remark must include evidence that the remark has been reviewed by the original marker, the result of that review, and it must also include the explanation as to why the remark is being sought.
At this point, your request will either be denied or approved. If approved, your assignment will be remarked within 10 working days from the approval to remark. It is important to note that you cannot get a lower grade.
In the case where your request has been denied, you still have the option to appeal the request for remark and send it to the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the college within 10 working days from denial to remark.
Following this, the Pro-Vice Chancellor will number 1, investigate the grounds for the rejection, number 2, either direct a remark or confirm that the original mark will stand, and finally number 3, advise the student of the decision within 10 working days.
In the extreme case where the student is still unsatisfied with their mark, the decision can be further appealed to the University Ombudsman. And that's how you make your grades remarkable.
And thanks to our reporter Zhao Jing for that video there. And such an interesting piece by the Student Union.
It was.
It's really good to raise awareness for the rights of students, the rights students have when it comes to their actual final mark. There's certainly been instances in assessments where I think I've done I've been marked unfairly, or I think that I've done a better job. And there's got to be other times where it's happened that a student has handed in an A and then received, a C back. There's so many variables. I didn't actually know that I had the power to review that, though. Did you have any idea that you could contest the mark?
Yeah, I was aware of the process, but they don't really tell you much about it. So, to my knowledge, I thought if you got your assignment remarked, it could potentially go down, but that's not necessarily the case.
No.
It won't go down, so it is worth going for it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot to consider when, considering everyone, there's so many people in the cohort, they're all working on the one assessment next to one another sort of thing, and seeing individual people's works up next to one another could be really, really difficult to sort of find a common ground or mark, or separate these ones as good marks or those ones as poor ones. First, you have to consider who is marking your work. Obviously, their personal opinion could really influence how they interpret the assessment. The lecturers and the tutors obviously have a certain level of training that gives them the authority to make a critical assessment of someone's work. And but yeah, I don't know. Should students really be questioning that authority?
It's tough to say, really, because they haven't really got the power to.
No.
But then again, they shouldn't be feeling like they've been hard done by. Like, they should have a fair and honest mark, but sometimes teachers are stricter and some are just generous. I do think it can balance itself out.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I suppose that what we need to consider as well is there can be just so many variables when it comes to marking, and if the tutor had a particularly bad day, got stuck in traffic, took 3 hours to get home, and they sat down to mark something, and they were just like, "This is terrible." As opposed to them sitting down just after they've won $50 on the lottery, they'd probably be stoked, and everything looks great from there on. So surely there must be some instances where it's sort of gone wrong. Anyway, I think it's good that students can...
and I think it should be made more aware that they can do it, and your grade won't be affected. It won't go down, it can only go up or just stay the same. And I think that's the most important part of it.
Definitely, and excellent work by the Student Union for bringing that sort of awareness to us. It's fantastic. And like you said before, thank God it can't go down, because, it's going to stay at the same level even if you do contest it, just in case they really look into it and think, actually...
It really is worth a try.
You didn't actually deserve the mark that we gave her the first time. Okay, so this now we have headlines with... we have the headlines with Jessica Berg again. It's 11:33 and you've tuned into the 11th hour.
Hello again. Australian woman Sarah Connor has had her sentence increased from 4 to 5 years for the fatal assault of a Bali police officer. North Korea has claimed it has successfully conducted a mid to long-range missile test on Sunday. News Corp's latest round of cuts has made up to 70 staff photographers redundant. And Amnesty International has released a report saying the shooting on Manus Island during the Good Friday riot was significantly downplayed. Thanks,
Lisa.
Thanks.
Now, we were just talking about winter earlier and staying healthy during the winter. Now, I know that you're Canadian.
I am, yeah.
I don't mean to harp on about it, but this cold weather is really making me very unsettled. So what's it like compared to... What is our winter like compared to your Canadian winter? Are we complaining too much?
I mean, I get it. It is cold here, but it's nothing compared to the cold where I'm from. But it is a lot more depressing, I think, Melbourne weather, because where I'm from in Edmonton, we have snow, and so there's a whole bunch of winter activities you can do. You can go tobogganing, snowboarding, and snow
outside winter activities.
Yeah, outside winter activities where there's no outdoor rain activities unless you're going to be splashing in puddles.
What's the lowest temperature it gets to in Canada?
It gets to minus 30.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it's very.
I can't.
Very cold.
You're from England as well, James. What's the?
I actually find it worse over here because I don't think you're very equipped for the summer. Not summer, the winter. Sorry, apologies. There's no insulation in my house. There's no central heating.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I go to bed fully clothed, and back home I don't.
Yeah, okay. I agree. When we have minus 30, we go from our very heated house to our heated cars to our heated workplaces, where here it's half the time places don't have heat. You're just walking around bundled up constantly.
No, I can't.
It was definitely a shock to the system coming over here. I didn't pack any winter stuff when I came over.
Well, give me sunshine and beach any day of the week.
Yeah, easy.
For sure.
Well, thanks again for that, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
See you.
Well, one way that Russians keep warm during the winter is through a very special drink that can make you a little bit boozy.
Vodka,
that's right. A traditional Russian alcohol that sends your whole body into a state of cosy comfort. Well, Australian alcohol producers have been making a splash in the global market with craft beers and specialty liquors. And reporter Zeren Altun headed out to meet a young Australian vodka producer to chat to him about his new vodka line, Bondi Blue.
Despite the name Bondi Blue, the vodka is not actually from Sydney, but rather from here in Melbourne.
What's my favourite drink? Bondi Blue vodka. It's a bit cliche, isn't it? But it is Bondi Blue vodka.
Jessie Regolo is not your average 24-year-old. Jessie is the founder and managing director of Bondi Blue Vodka. Bondi Blue is a premium Australian vodka that is growing in demand and popularity.
We want to, capture that Australian lifestyle and make people want to come to Australia or want to be proud to be Australian and to live in this amazing country that we are fortunate enough to call home.
Jesse's plans to own his own vodka didn't happen in a usual way. Through an unlikely turn of events, Jesse found his way into the vodka business.
After high school, I went straight into TAFE, and then from TAFE I was going to go to uni. But my course got cancelled halfway through, and it kind of put me in a spot where I had to think on my feet and do something that was going to challenge me and something that I actually wanted to do.
This hiccup flung Jesse into a creative endeavour to start his very own brand of vodka.
It threw me into this world of being your own boss and starting your own business and not relying on people or not having a set system given to you. You have to create something.
There are challenges involved with creating a successful brand, but Jesse believes that Bondi Blue is more than just your typical vodka.
It's really challenging because the vodka market in particular is an extremely flooded market. Our luxury is that we have a point of difference is that we are Australian. We are a high premium product and we sell more of a lifestyle than a vodka. What we are doing is we're selling Australia.
Bondi Blue is gaining national and international recognition. It has come a long way, but still has a long way to go.
It's been an incredible journey. I'm shocked that I am where I am in such a short amount of time.
Keep an eye out for Bondi Blue's journey. You may be seeing it in stores soon.
Well, there you go. Bondi Blue could be our trick to staying cosy this winter. We should tell Findley about it next time that she pops in for the nutrition segment.
Plenty of potatoes in it.
Plenty of potatoes. So she was saying they're in season as well.
Yeah.
Bargain. And what beautiful footage, by the way, of the local Melbourne beaches in the Melbourne surrounds there. I wonder how difficult it would be to break into the vodka market.
Yeah, 23 years old. He was a
23-year-old guy. Imagine owning your own vodka business at 23 years old.
It's hard to imagine. I'm 26 and I've just gone back to university.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, the market for Australian vodkas and for Australian gins, I know, is like really Australian whiskies as well in Tasmania. It's really booming. There's been like a number of high-ranking Aussie spirits in international competitions as well as craft beers as well. Consequently, I was going to say that there was a Tasmanian distiller, Sullivan's Cove. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't.
Well, they were named the single malt whiskey, like the single malt whiskey of the world, the best. And
it's quite accolade, sorry, yeah.
Since they won that accolade, their sales have gone up 479%.
Wow.
Since winning that title belt, which is pretty exciting stuff. Yeah. Do you like whiskey? Speaking of beverages, we're on beverages all day.
I do like whiskey, but I like it on the rocks. Not a big fan of it having it neat. It's a bit too harsh on the throat. What about yourself?
Love it. Love a dram. I used to live in Scotland, so
whereabouts in Scotland do you live?
They made me like it. Edinburgh. And then like north as well. But
what's your favourite Scottish whiskey?
Lafroig.
Lafroig, I've
it's
not heard
smoky
of that.
And peaty as smoky and peaty. Well, anyway, it's now time to catch up with our sport gurus, Brayden and Ryan, who have been doing some pretty incredible work over the weekend, as well as as well as over the week. What's been going on in sport, guys?
Hi guys, yeah, so big week in sport, but we've noticed that James has kind of jumped ship off the sports and he's...
Nice of you to leave us, mate.
Yeah, AFL's not.
He just didn't have enough to talk about with all that soccer.
We'll forgive him, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's soccer here, mate, so we'll stick with that. But anyway, this morning we've had some sad news out of Melbourne. And Ryan, if you want to just take us through it.
Yeah, so it was revealed early this morning that young Melbourne forward Jessie Hogan has been diagnosed with testicular cancer. So from everyone here at the 11th hour, we just want to send our best wishes to Jessie and we hope that he makes a speedy and quick recovery.
And then now we'll cross to the AFL results. Just a recap. Big weekend of upsets again, and it was just hot footy, especially at the G on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, so Richmond hosted Fremantle at the G on Sunday, and they were down for most of the game, but they kicked 5 goals in the last quarter, and Brandon Ellis kicked one with 21 seconds to go, and it looked like the Tigers were going to pinch one.
That was a great kick from Ellis, just under pressure. The pack around him was absolutely amazing. I thought he had it, but there was one more twist.
Yeah, so David Mundy kind of broke Tigers' hearts again a few years after he kicked a goal to win the game at the MCG. So Lachie Neale got a centre clearance and he took it inside 50, and Mundy marked and shot after the siren and he kicked a goal.
What did you make of that play?
Yeah, it was. I love after the siren goals. It's kind of you grow up and you're always playing footy. You wish that you could be the guy that kicks the goal to get your team over the line after the siren. So yeah, I loved it.
I'm on the opposite side of the fence this time. It was great for footy, but Richmond, come on. Aaron Sandilands for Fremantle is probably the best ruckman in the comp at the moment. He's 211 centimetres. He's going to give his midfielders first use. How the hell do they get clean clearance?
Yeah, I no idea. I've watched that footage back a few times. I'm not sure how Lachie Neale got free clearance, but I watched the Port Adelaide Gold Coast game on Channel 7 Sunday, the one from Shanghai, which was a big success for Port Adelaide both on the field and off the field.
Yeah, it was quite strange, to be honest, seeing a game played in China. The ground, I thought it looked good. People said there was empty seats, but if you actually look at it, you can see they've pulled the seats forward to make it the atmosphere greater.
Yeah, I think there was AFL said it was a sell-out crowd of about 10,000, but I think a lot of the Port Adelaide supporters ventured over. They put the NXS song pre-game. It was billed as a Port home game, even though Gold Coast gave up their home game. But on the field, what did you make of the game?
Oh, well, once again, Port dominated on the scoreboard, but can we really say much about it against the Gold Coast?
Yeah.
Gold Coast are just so inconsistent at the moment.
Yeah, I think they played really well last week at home against Geelong. I think they played good footy up at Metricon, but the game was really over midway through that second quarter. I was watching it and I kind of didn't lose interest, but it wasn't much of a spectacle to watching it, other than Justin Westhoff's kick from the boundary line.
A bit of luck involved, but Westhoff's that type of player that's just freakish.
Yeah, he was. There was a few goals. I think him, Clayton Oliver, and Still Sidebottom all kicked some rippers on the weekend. And Brad Ebert won the Shanghai medal with that game. He finished with 31 touches, and he didn't tag Ablett, but he played on him at most of the stoppages, and he kind of shut Ablett down for the game.
One thing for sure, it was hot in Shanghai, but I think it was even hotter at the MCG, at Etihad, between St Kilda and Carlton. Yeah. Ryan, what did you make of it being a Carlton supporter?
That's our hot topic this week. So Saturday's Carlton and St Kilda game has been the talking point for most of the weekend. It was after an old school melee broke out on the heels of three-quarter time when Bryce Gibbs kicked a goal. People weren't sure about it, why the melee broke out, but in footage released after the game, it was seen that Carlton skipper Mark Murphy, he verbally attacked Jake Carlisle as the defender was lying on the ground injured. And then Saints captain Jiang Geary kind of remonstrated with Murphy, which sparked the brawl. But post-match, it came to light that Murphy's action was a result of a number of sledges directed towards him regarding his wife, Jessie, which was made public yesterday.
Yeah, and Murphy did release a statement saying that he wanted the Twitter trolls and people like that just to stop. As affecting him and his wife, he is human. I know he's an AFL footballer, he's going to get this attention, but he's a human being after all.
Yeah, and I think it brings to light the issue of sledging on the footy field. I mean, it's been a part of the AFL culture for years now, but I think there's a line. I think the AFL is so good when it comes to racism and things like that. It's called out all the time when things like that happen. But I think when the league's come so far this year in terms of accepting women into the game, whether that be on the field with AFLW or things like getting your journos on TV in the paper a lot more. I think when you've got blokes out there that show such disrespect to not only Mark Murphy as a bloke, but to bring his wife into it, I think that when you bring a family member into it, I think that kind of crosses a line. I think Saints players realised that yesterday, and they've done the right thing with Jaren Geary came out yesterday and said that he's tried to contact Murphy. Obviously, Murphy hasn't responded yet, but I'm sure that Murphy, once the situation's cooled down, he probably take Jaren's call.
I want to pose this question to you. Obviously, on the tour of India in the cricket, Australia got caught up in a heated affair. Is sledging just too big on the field in Australian sport?
I think we can overstep the mark a bit. I think it's fine when you get your Stevie J's or your other guys that have a bit of lighthearted fun, like shocking kick, or I think Josh Kelly said to Stevie J in the year, your dad's paid for all my trips because he's my manager. Like stuff like that's a bit of banter and that's a bit of fun. But as I said, like when you bring in race or sexism or someone's sexuality into it, or someone's wife or their family, and the comments are made in a derogatory manner, I think you can overstep the mark. And I think guys of that calibre should know when the mark's been overcrossed. And I agree that Murphy's look, his look didn't look great on camera when he went up to Carlisle when he was on the ground. It didn't look very good on camera, but I guess a lot of people understand why he was so heated, and I think after the game he only shook a couple of the single players' hands, and I think that's when it
came
to light that he was a bit. I think people said that I had never seen Murphy in all his time playing footy. They'd never seen him so distressed, and you can understand like it's his wife, like it's the biggest person in his life. Like if people are going to say stuff about her, he's obviously going to be very upset. But it didn't dampen his game. Like, he kicked 2 goals, had 30. He's had an outstanding season. So hopefully now, I think the AFL came out yesterday. The PA's made a statement. I think now that everyone's across it, I think hopefully there's been some rumours that we're not going to mention here because we don't talk about rumours, but hopefully that everything can just cool down and the two teams can focus on the game this week.
Yeah, Tim Watson asked for a code of conduct, called for that on SEN yesterday morning on Tim, Hamish and Gary. And what do you make of a possible code of conduct for what can be said on the field?
I think it'd be tough to implement a code of conduct because, in the heat of the moment, people get so caught up and they let things slip. I think Kane Corns wrote an article in the Adelaide Advertiser yesterday that said Will Minson said something really terrible about his ill son when he was playing, and, Will tried to apologise after the game because he felt that he'd said the wrong thing, but Kane didn't accept it. And I think a lot of people know once they get off the field that they've made a bad call. I think Luke Darcy on Channel 7 Talking Footy last night said that he couldn't believe he'd said some of the stuff he said in his career. But I think that a code of conduct will be so hard because people would get, when footy players, I've played football, you played football, when you cross the white line, you're just so in the heat of the moment. But I think AFL players particularly need to know where that line is, and they should know not to cross a particular line.
I think you've summed that up perfectly. I think we're going to get away from the negative now and take a trip out. We took a trip out to Victoria Park on Saturday for a different look at footy. Well, most Saturdays you might find us at Etihad or the MCG. Today we've ventured down to Victoria Park, the old home of Collingwood Football Club.
And mate, we're here at Vic Park because our own Scarlett Maloney from the 11th hour is here playing in the Victorian Pub Footy League. So let's take a closer look.
While it may sound like just a bit of fun, the Renegade Pub Football League aims to play an important role in helping to eliminate violent and abusive behaviour by providing an inclusive environment for both men and women.
Late in the first quarter, the moment we had been waiting for came, as Scarlett entered the field of play and soon produced a very questionable disposal.
We asked Scarlett what she most enjoyed about the game.
The best thing about pub footy is everyone getting involved, everyone having a good time on the field, everyone having fun, everyone having beers before and after the game, and mixed teams, girls and boys having fun at the same time.
And while there were some questionable choices of attire, you usually find 3 types of fans of pub footy. The blokes that shout from the grandstand.
Yes! Shoo! Shoo!
The people who make the wet area their second home. And the people who think they can win the game off their own boot after a couple of beers.
Let me get on the field. I've had 4 beers. I'll kick 10.
Having resumed our reporting duties, we spoke to Scarlett about how she rated her performance.
I mean, I've touched the ball a few times.
Pub footy, mate. Some of our stuff wasn't all that great, but our reporting stuff, what did you make of the game?
Oh, very different. I actually enjoyed the concept of being out at Victoria Park and getting a different look at footy. And if we go to our host, Scarlett, who was the star of the show on the day.
Thank you. I kicked all of the goals.
How was that?
I didn't actually kick any of the goals.
What did you make of that disposal? I think we might have seen you throw the footy.
I actually threw the footy twice, but I didn't do it the right way. I was like
just offloaded it
So you-
without
Hot potato.
handballing. I didn't even
I
handball it.
think even the Brit who was there with us, I think he knew you kind of got to have to handball the footy.
Yeah, no, so that was just panicking more than anything. But I've never watched a game of football in my life still, and I'm playing AFL now.
So how long have you been playing in the Pub Footy League?
This will be now my third game. Yep, including a scratchy. So 2 games.
Yeah.
Is it all possible to get James down there for a kick of the footy? There was one questionable kick on the sidelines.
No, we're inclusive. We take everybody except British people.
That's okay.
We even,
the guy asked for the ball back and I threw it like a rugby ball. He
No,
wasn't impressed.
it's really great actually, pub footy, because everyone's allowed to be involved. Like they give all the chicks a really good go, like you were talking about earlier. Getting girls involved on the field is really good, and I think that a lot of the girls are more tentative to try to get the ball and everything because we don't as necessarily grow up with it as ingrained into us as guys do. So it's really great there because they really give they really give the chicks a run with the ball and make sure that they can get away with it every now and then and get a kick in just to sort of boost confidence levels.
Well,
It makes for better female players because then they feel more confident and they're able to
I think we
kick
saw
goals.
when we were down at it, it was an all, at the first centre bounce for the first quarter, it was an all female, so they sent all the girls in first, which I thought was really good way to get them involved and get an early possession.
Exactly, and then the guys can't enter that area until I mean, am I explaining football rules to you?
Yeah. We even saw, it wasn't in the package we played, but we even saw a dog enter the field.
Yeah, there was a dog on the field for a short while.
Yeah,
there,
he
which
came
was
on
pretty funny.
midway through the third quarter, and he was quicker than most blokes out there. I can tell you that.
And there was a bit of a conundrum there at Vic Park. There was 11 phones stolen during half time, just from my team's locker room, which was really terrible. But guys, news has come. All of the phones have been found.
Oh, beauty!
Someone's just panicked and ditched them at the Richmond train station.
Great, because everyone was,
That's
did
lucky.
we get any
Very
footage? Which
fortunate.
unfortunately we didn't. But
No.
yeah, that's good
I was
news.
just filming the dog,
Well, I hope you guys have fun out there anyway.
Yeah, it was good. It was awesome. So, do you have another game this week, or is it?
No, not for another. No, not for a while
Not for a
actually.
while. So what goes on? What goes on after a game? Like once the final siren sounds, what goes on?
Oh, people stay and watch the other games and
Yep.
drink some beers and then go to the pub.
Yep. So what pub was the footy league?
Well, so the team who loses, so we won against Labor, so they put $100 on their tab for us at the Labor bar.
And how can people get involved in the Pub Footy League?
I think you just need to know someone. Get your foot in the door.
No, Scarlett. Contact Scarlett.
Thanks for that, guys.
No worries. Thanks for having us.
No worries.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks again.
So now you have tuned into the 11th hour. It's 11:52, and it's coming to the end of our show. But don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, because we have the showdown in
Hi,
later
Matt.
on.
Hello.
We've got Matt Coburn here from the showdown here to tell us about the show. Matt, what's coming up?
Oh, we've got a really big show coming up. We're all very excited for it.
Okay.
We are covering a very serious topic. We're talking about the Syrian conflict, and we have Ahmed Youssef covering that, and he's interviewed a documentary filmmaker on that matter. Also, we've got a bit more lighthearted things, such as the coffee cup waste, because, if you're buying coffees, in 1 week you can fill up an entire tram with disposable coffee cups. Am I wrong with that?
No, I'm just saying thank God you're talking about it because
Yeah.
it really grinds my gears. It's like my pet hate is disposable coffee cups.
Yes.
Even, like, the pods are really bad as well.
Oh, the pods, they just fill up landfill like you
Yeah.
wouldn't believe.
Yeah, people need to buy a little. I invested in a little. What is it called? Reusable coffee cup, and I
thermos.
I use it religiously. No, a thermos is great as well. Yeah, bring tea.
Coffee trumps tea every time.
Oh.
I wouldn't say the same there, mate. But no.
Okay, very good. Anything else coming up on the show?
Wow. We've got one of our reporters went to a live dog show, so we've got a nice little puppies on our show. So if pretty much anything you want in a show, we have it this week. We've got
The showdown. It's got it all.
Tune in. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us then,
My
Matt.
pleasure.
We'll be definitely tuning into the show after this. And I think that's sort of all we've got time for at the moment for the 11th hour. It's been a pleasure hosting here with you, James.
Been a pleasure with you, Scarlett, as well. And don't forget to tweet us at the 11th hour _LTU.
Thanks, James. Tune in next week at 11 a.m. for more of the 11th hour. And until then, thanks very much.
Thank you.